Om Sadashiva-Samārambhām Shankara-Charyamanthanām Asmadacharya-Paryantam
Vande Guru
Guru-Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano
Veeram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah
So,
Shivaya.
in the last verse, we had discussed a lot of things. I hope you remember them all. But the crucial portion was that what is an object for which you should not grieve? You know, in Hindi, jo shok ke yogya nahi hai. So what is not to be grieved for, that is called ashocya. And every object in this world is ashocya, including your family, including your own body also. It's all ashocya, not worthy of being grieved for. This was what is said. And therefore Krishna says to Arjuna that to grieve for the bodies of others, hey Arjuna, that shows that you are not wise. That shows that you have not got jnanam. So now in the next verse, he continues with this. So we will chant the next verse, which is verse number 12. So please unmute yourself and we can chant verse number 12. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Natvevaham jatu nasam
Natvevaham jatunasam
Natvam neme janadhipaha
Natvam
Natvam
neme
Neme
janadhipaha
Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha
Na chaiva bhavishyamaha
Sarve vayamatah param.
Sarve vayamatah param.
So just for those people who have not yet done chanting, it is not vayamatah param. The visarga, when followed by pa varga, it changes into pa. Therefore, sarve vayamatah param. You just remember that the visarga has a way of changing its pronunciation when followed by different alphabets. All that is explained in the chanting class. Okay, so I've muted all of y'all, and now we are looking at the 12th verse. So let me first break up the words for you. So na is as it is. Tve vaham. That breaks into three different words. Tu plus eva plus aham. So natu eva aham. Jatu nasam breaks into na plus asam. So na plus asam is nasam. Na asam. Then natvam neme is na ime. Neme breaks into na ime. Janadhipaha is as it is. Na chaiva is na. Cha plus eva. Chaiva is cha plus eva. So na cha eva na bhavishyamaha. Sarve vayamataha is vayam plus ataha. Vayam ma with a halant below it. Sarve vayam ataha param. Okay. Na tu eva aham jatu na asam na tvam na ime janadhipaha na cha eva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam ataha param. Those are the word breakups. And now we have to put the anvaya, the sentence formation. Na tu eva jatu aham na asam, comma. Na tu eva jatu, aham na asam, comma. Na tvam, comma. Na ime janadhipaha, full stop. Na cha eva sarve vayam ataha param na bhavishyamaha. So I am saying comma and full stop. I mean, those who know Hindi, Devanagari should understand it as what? Comma is what?
Ardhaviram.
Ardhaviram.
Comma is alpaviram. And full stop is
Viram.
Purnaviram.
Those words I'm not using, but when mentally you should get adjusted to that. Now the words. Natu eva jatu. So that's a funny usage, which means there was never a time. Natu eva jatu. ऐसा कोई वक्त था ही नहीं. There was never any such time when aham na asam. I was not. So I was not, you have to add, I was not existing. So aham na asam, I was not existing. Na tvam. There also you have to add. Na tvam means nor you. You have to add were not existing. So there was never a time when I was not existing, nor was a time when you were not existing. Na ime janadhipaha. So janadhipaha is jana adhipa, the king, adhikari, the one who is the king. So na ime janadhipaha, nor was there a time when these kings were not there. Nacha eva ataha param, nor will thereafter, hereafter, in future. So nacha eva ataha param means nor in future. Sarve vayam. Vayam is, what does vayam mean in Sanskrit?
All of
All of us.
All of us. Plural.
We.
Okay. It's plural. So sarve vayam, all of us. Na bhavishyamaha, will not exist. Okay, very convoluted way of putting it. And double negatives are being used. So we'll leave it like that for the time being. None, and we'll go back to the what do you call it? I'll put a different sentence for you so that it's easier to understand. Okay, let me put this differently. We'll say in English, he's saying that there was never a time when I did not exist. Aham jatu natu asam na eva. There was never a time when I did not exist. Natvam. You have to add there. Asaha iti na eva. There was never a time when you did not exist. Na ime janadhipaha. Again, if you want to complete the sentence, asan iti na eva. There was never a time when these janadhipas, these kings, did not exist. Cha. And ataha param sarve vayam na bhavishyamaha. Iti na eva. There is going to be no such time when all of us will not exist. It's all usage of double negatives. Okay. So we'll come to the individual words. Let us look at what we have to understand from this verse. It's a very important verse. So Arjuna has two problems right now on the battlefield. He has got two problems. What are they? One, how to solve my problem of grief, his problem of sorrow, which was explained throughout the first chapter. He was saying that I cannot see, I'm my hair is standing and my legs are shivering. So all problems of samsara. So how to solve his problem of samsara, that has to be told to him. There is also an immediate problem. Should I fight this battle or not? And Krishna is the teacher, so he has to solve both these problems, right? He has to solve the problem of whether to fight the battle or not. And he has to solve the problem of Arjuna's samsara. And they are both very deeply interlinked. So Krishna makes, in this chapter you will find, Krishna draws out the strategy. So every war has to have a strategy, how to fight the war. So Krishna has a strategy with 3 levels. One is the philosophical angle. He has to solve that problem. What is that? Life problem of samsara. Then second problem of whether Arjuna should fight the battle or not, that can be sorted out at 2 levels. The first problem is what? Arjuna's problem of samsara. Samsara is a philosophical problem. So he has to solve that also. The second problem is whether he should fight. So that Krishna will address in 2 levels. One is from the ethical level. He will say, Arjuna, you have to fight from the ethical level. Third is from the Laukika level, the worldly level. He'll say, you also have to fight. So you'll find all these coming through in the next few verses. Okay, this is only an outline. The solution Krishna is offering is at 3 levels: philosophical, ethical, and Laukika, worldly. Out of which is the main approach? The philosophical approach. That is the primary approach for the Gita. Now, when Arjuna's question, it seems to indicate, what was Arjuna's question? Do you remember? He says, Dharma sammuda chetaha, he has said in the 7th verse, which means I'm confused about dharma. No, that is not really true, because Arjuna has been taught Dharma Shastra, and his brother is who? Dharmaputra, right? He is a very Sakshat Dharma only, because his father is called Dharmaputra. So Arjuna's problem is not of ethics, is not of Dharma Shastram. So he knows what is Dharma, he knows what is Adharma, because he has studied Dharma Shastram. Therefore, Arjuna's primary problem is not Dharma Ajnanam or Adharma Ajnanam, not ignorance of ethical values of Dharma or Adharma. His main problem is Atma Ajnanam. So Krishna understands this, and therefore Krishna's approach starts with the philosophical solution. So from verse number 12 to verse number 25, verse number 12 to verse number 25 in this chapter, Krishna will talk about the philosophical approach. Now these 13 verses, actually speaking, you should all have it by heart, because these 13 verses, they represent the essence not only of Bhagavad Gita, they represent the essential teaching of all the Vedas also. All the Upanishads, every teaching is covered in this 13 verses. If possible, you should try to get them by heart, and you should be fluent at chanting it. But this is a very, very important section. It talks about Atma Vidya. Okay, so this is the first way in which Krishna starts off. And later on, he'll say that from the ethical angle also you have to fight, and then from the worldly angle also you have to fight. That is a different thing. Now let us take up the first philosophical angle. Now here, some very basic concepts which we have learned have to be revised, because this is what Atma Vidya. Okay, and there was a question asked where Atma Kaha. What was that question? Where was it asked?
Tattva-bodha.
Tattva-bodha. So this is why we insist that students of Bhagavad Gita should invariably have done Tattva-bodha several times. Is this because every word here has to be correlated to what you learn in Tattva-bodha. So what was the, if anybody remembers the exact answer, Atma Kaha, what was the answer? Does anybody remember?
that it is not the three shariram, it is not the five koshas, it is not the pranas.
Agreed. But, I would really like it if you can quote anybody.
Satchidanand Swarupam. Satchidanand Swarupam.
Exact quote.
I can only read it out.
Read it out, no problem. Ambarish.
Yeah. So it is Sthula Sukshma Karana Sariradyati Riktah Panchakoshatita San Avastha Traya Sakshi Satchidananda Swarupah San Yastishtati Sa Atma.
Excellent. So this is the answer. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha. What does that mean?
Not bound by time and space, the all-pervading,
no,
visible.
No, exactly.
What is not
इनके अलावा
Sharira, what is not Sukshma Sharira?
Look at the
It is
words. Sthula
अतिरिक्ता
Sukshma
Sthula,
Karana
Sukshma,
Sharira Vyatiriktaha. What is Vyatiriktaha?
Other than that.
It
Other
is
than-
other than that
Other
इनके
than
अलावा
that. Vyatirikta means iske alawa, different from. Okay, so that is the first definition. Atma is different from the three bodies. Sthula, Sukshma, Karan, Shariram. That is the first definition. Then Pancha Kosha Atita San, which is beyond. Atita means having crossed over, gone beyond, which is beyond the five koshas. Right? I hope you remember the five koshas. What are the five koshas?
अन्मय कोश
Annamaya kosha, pranamaya
प्राणमय
kosha,
कोश
manomaya
Manmaya
kosha,
kosha,
विज्ञानमय
anandamaya
कोश
kosha.
आनंदमय कोश
Great. So remember that you need to know the correct order. Okay. Of course, all of us said it correctly, but it's important to remember the order because that will come later on also. Then there is a second definition. The third one is avastha traya shakshi, which means what?
It is the observer of the three avasthas.
Observer, witness of the three avasthas. What are three avasthas?
Jagrati,
Jagrata,
Swapna, Sushupti.
Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Okay. And then he says, so these are all negative definitions because they are, the first two are defining what it is not. Vyatirikta and Atita. The next one is saying what it is. By saying that Avasthatraya Sakshi, it's also saying that what?
it's not
the
this
Avasthatraya. Okay. So the first three definitions are exclusion definitions. Then Satchida Ananda Swarupa San. San means it is. That's very Swarupam, very nature is Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat is consciousness. Sorry, Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness.
Chit is consciousness, Ananda is bliss.
Swarupa means the very nature of Yaha Tishtati Sa Atma. That which remains as such, always remaining as such, is Atma. As such means as defined by all these definitions. Okay, this you remember a very long, and like when we are at least in this chapter, you should constantly be aware of all the various definitions because it'll keep coming up. But unless you know exactly where they are and where are they being drawn from, there will always be doubts about what am I really studying. But once you know the basis, that it's drawn not from my memory or my intellect, is being drawn from the Shastram itself. So that is the very definition of a teacher. Whatever he tells you, you should be able to trace it back to Shastra. If he cannot do that, then it is a figment of his own imagination to be discarded. Okay, so everything has to find its roots in Shastra. Then only your teaching is correct. Okay, now let's look at it. So every individual is a piece of two things, Atma, Anatma. And this combination makes this Anatma look as if it is alive, as if it is conscious. And that is what we call Jiva. So every individual, every Jiva is a conscious entity. So let us define this Chit, this consciousness. And this is an extremely important definition This definition is not found in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, this definition you will find once you progress beyond Bhagavad Gita, once you go into Upanishads, you will find that bits and pieces of these definitions are found in Upanishads everywhere. So what I'm now telling you is which has been extracted from all the Upanishads. There are 5 points which define consciousness. Very, very important. They're all pulled out Shastram only. First one, consciousness is not a part, not a property, and not a product of the body. So instead of body, you can substitute anatma. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Not a part. What are body parts? Hands, legs, nose, ears. So they belong to the body. Consciousness cannot be represented by any of those parts. Now, second one is property. What are properties of the body? You have body can be tall, body can be short, body can be healthy, body can be unhealthy, body can be thin, body can be fat. All these are properties of the body. Consciousness is not that also. Then third one is consciousness is not a product of the body. What are products of the body?
The enzymes, hormones.
Okay, or you can, more visible products are nail, hair, nail, hair, spit, all these things. So consciousness is not produced by the body also. The first definition, extremely important. Consciousness is not a part, it's not a property, it's not a product of the body. Okay, which means that the body cannot in any way influence consciousness. Is that clear? Because it is not a part, it is not a property, and is not a product. Therefore, consciousness cannot be touched by the body. So I'm stopping at all these. If at all there is any, what they call misunderstanding, any doubt, please ask immediately, because this is one of the most fundamental definitions we will see not only in Bhagavad Gita, but across. So it is important to understand what exactly is consciousness.
So you said that Jiva is Atma and Anatma. And so Anatma draws consciousness from Atma.
No, this has to be understood from Tattvabodha point of view. What does Tattvabodha say? Anybody? What does Tattvabodha say?
Sir, what is the question?
Can you repeat the question, madam?
OC and RM is Jiva.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? That's the point. So don't use words like, the very purpose of Tattvabodha is to make you use the right words. So when you say the body is conscious, it means what? The body is the reflecting medium. And the consciousness that you see is the reflected consciousness reflected in this body. That is what you call being alive. That is what you are meaning by drawing consciousness. So don't use all those words because you get confused.
Okay.
Use exactly the words in the Shastra. Basically, Jiva is RC. The moment you say reflected consciousness, what is implied? Two things should be there. What are they?
The object and the medium.
No. Use technical terms.
Oh.
Medium and the
Medium and
Reflecting medium.
Reflecting medium and
OC.
Original consciousness.
Original.
Remember that you can understand this simpler by, if you take the example of the light being reflected, or sun being reflected in the mirror. To see the reflected sun in the mirror, you require two things. You require the original sun and you require the mirror also. Similarly, to see the Jiva, always there are two things. The reflecting medium, which is the three bodies. The reflected consciousness, which is not OC, not original consciousness, but the reflection in the three media. Okay, once you understand these principles, which is why I keep saying, Tattvabodha is not to be done only once and dispensed with. That is why we as a small group, we try to run Tattvabodha continuously. At least 3 times a year, we try to run a Tattva class. So please go back. All of you all who are even slightest doubts, you should go and attend as many sessions as possible until the clarity is so strong that no doubt comes. Okay, so this is the first one. Not a part, not a property, not a product. I hope there are no doubts about that. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
sir, I was thinking that it's not a product. Can it also mean ki vichar or man is also separate from it? Is man and vichar is a product of body, or
Very
it is
much, very much. When I say body, I mean 3 bodies also, right? So the thought is always a product of what?
Sukshma.
Sharira.
Vichara is product of what?
Mind.
Anything is a product of mind, right? Mind is what? Body of what? Sukshma Shariram. It's product of body. So that's why, this discussion is extremely important, because you must be very clear what belongs to Atma, what belongs to Anatma. The whole purpose of this discussion is to figure that out. And once having gone through these 13 verses, that should be, embedded in your mind. You should have 2 buckets. In one bucket, you put all Anatma. And whatever is not Anatma is what? Atma.
Atma.
Okay, or you can put the other way around. In one bucket, you put Atma. Whatever is not in that bucket, everything goes into the Anatma bucket. There are only 2 things, Atma, Anatma. There is no third entity at all. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is this consciousness is, because of what we have said, not part, not property, not product. That leads to the second point. This consciousness is a completely separate and independent entity. What does it do? It pervades the body. It pervades see, right now I'm using the body as an example. Later on, we can convert it to Anatma. But right now, it's body, let it remain easier to understand with body only. So this consciousness, separate, independent entity, which pervades and enlivens the body. It gives life to the body. How? You have to go back to Tattva-bodha. It pervades the body means the body is the reflecting medium. And when it's pervading the body, it gets reflected off the body. And that is what we mean when we say enlivens the body. Life to the inert body is given because of consciousness being in that body. Now, consciousness, okay, that's the second point. Okay, it pervades the body and makes it alive, as if alive. Third is that this consciousness is not bound by the boundaries of the body. The body has boundaries. What are the boundaries of the body?
Form,
Space and time.
space and
And time is the boundary of the body. Okay. So consciousness is not bound by the spatial boundary of the body, which means that you have to correctly understand what it means. When I say that consciousness is not bound by the bodies, by the spatial boundary of the body, what is the spatial boundary of your body?
Physical
shape,
body,
the gross body.
It is the skin. Your body does not extend beyond your skin. You agree?
Yeah.
You have to be very clear about it, okay? I'm taking so much time because very important concepts. When I say spatial boundary for a body, I am meaning the outer skin of the body. Because my body here doesn't extend beyond the skin. Body here doesn't extend beyond the skin. So spatial boundary of the body is the skin. Physical limitation of your body is your spatial boundary. Then there is a time-wise limitation of the body. What is that?
the birth and death.
Birth and death.
Vinashyati.
So third point is consciousness is not bound by spatial and time-wise boundaries of the body. Okay. Now time-wise boundary has to be understood as from the Tattva Bodha. Time-wise boundary can be understood as what? If you have to relate some Tattva Bodha term which you have studied. So
The
time-wise boundary.
Shadavik.
Till moksha.
Shadvikara. Correct. Shadvikara
But-
means from birth to death. So they can.
But if Acharya ji, if you are considering all three bodies, then that would also include the second body,
Yeah,
the
without,
astral
without
body.
all, without
But
all.
then the astral body actually lives beyond the physical death. So,
Yeah, but there is a death for the astral body also. There are different time frames. That's all.
okay, so birth and death we're referring to that death also.
Right now, we're referring to birth of the body and death of the physical body. For the birth of the Sukha Shariram, there is no birth at all. Okay.
Okay.
So don't get confused. Sukha Shariram has no birth.
But it still has death
It has death. When does it die?
at moksha
At moksha. Right? Or
or at pralayam.
at pralayam. All right. That way, I hope you all are clear about that. Okay. I'm sure Medha would have explained the boundaries, the death and birth concepts for the three bodies. So I'm not going into that. If you are confused, you have to go back to the Tattva Bodha class again. Every term here is going to be specifically understood in terms of what we have done in Tattva Bodha. So third one is consciousness not bound by spatial boundaries, not bound by time-wise boundary, which really means what?
It's eternal.
It is eternal, all right, but where is it found? When it is not
It is
found,
all pervading.
it is all pervasive. And
Tattva
therefore,
Gatva.
you should never say that I have consciousness in my body. What should you say?
My body is in consciousness.
My body is in consciousness. Because if you are not bound by the spatial boundary of the body, obviously it is your body which is in consciousness, not the other way around. Okay, I hope that statement is clear to everybody, right? Okay.
Yes.
The fourth one is when the body is destroyed, consciousness survives. It is not destroyed. Why? Because of all that we have said. Not part, not property, not product, not bound by spatial and time-wise boundary. And therefore, destruction of the body doesn't touch consciousness at all. Consciousness continues to survive. And the most important and final point, this surviving consciousness cannot be recognized by us. Why?
It needs a medium for
It needs a reflecting medium. In the absence of a reflecting medium, consciousness can never be recognized. So consciousness by itself is avyaktam. Avyaktam had a very technical definition in Tattva Bodha. What was that? Indriya agocharam.
agochara.
Not graspable by the indriyas. Okay, that is what is meant by avyaktam. Avyaktam is not visible. Not visible means my indriyas, my sense organs are not capable of grasping it. Okay, so these are the 5 defining factors for chit. Consciousness, not part, not property, not product of the body. Separate entity, separate independent entity, pervading and enlivening the body, giving life to the body, not bound by spatial and time-wise limitations of the body. When the body is destroyed, consciousness survives. And this surviving consciousness is Indriya Agocharam, cannot be recognized because there is no reflecting medium. This you must remember, and you must be able to say it in your sleep also. It should be that well assimilated. Once that assimilation is there, then you will find that the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, or for the matter, any scripture, is easily understood. Okay. Then we had another lesson from Tattvabodha, that we are currently, as a Ajnani, we identify ourselves with the bodies. That is the Ajnani. That is the Jiva. So we learned in Tattvabodha that spiritual sadhana, any spiritual sadhana, ultimately consists of shifting this abhimanam, this identification from the anatma, from the perishable anatma to the immortal atma. Shifting of my identification from the body to the atma, that is called spiritual sadhana. That we learned it in Buddha. Okay. Why is that so? There is a logic. When I accept that I am the anatma, what is the consequence?
I die, I suffer.
Yes, I have to
Unlimited.
accept when I accept that I'm anatma, I have to accept what Tattvabodha says about anatma. Shat vikara. I have to accept that I'm mortal, and therefore, if I am bent on saying I am the body only, then I should be able to accept that I am mortal and I will die one day. And if you don't think that's a satisfactory solution, then I should shift my identity to Atma. And because Atma is immortal, then I am immortal. So when I shift my identity to Atma, there is a very important caveat over here, okay? Because unfortunately, lot of teachers or yogis rather, they say that you are Atma, yes, and therefore you should dislike your body. You should torture the body so that you know that you are not the body. But Vedanta says that don't hate the body. Why? Because the body is the instrument for achieving moksha. The body contains your mind, your intellect. Without the intellect, there is no moksha. The body has to be in good condition so that you can study. And therefore use the body, take care of the body. You can even love the body. But love the body like you love your car. As a tool, You take care of your car very nicely, right? You polish it, you take it to the garage, you make sure that regular checkups are there. That means you are fond of your car. But if the car gets destroyed, you don't say, I am destroyed. So similarly, like the body, you take the body like your car, love the body as an instrument for transactions. But when the instrument goes, you should understand there is no question of my going away. This is the biggest advantage of this shift from mortality to immortality. And that's why we have the prayer, Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. And then once you understand this, what happens? Mrityoma amritam gamaya. Remember that when we say Mrityoma amritam gamaya, your mortal body is not going to become immortal. Okay? Anatma can never become immortal. Atma does not need to become immortal. It is already immortal. And therefore, the whole spiritual sadhana consists of shifting my identification from the mortal body to the immortal Atma. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How to arrive at all these things? So we have a few scriptural methods, techniques. So there is a text called Drik Drishya Viveka. Literally meaning, Drik means the one who is seeing. Drishya means that which is seen. Viveka means what?
Discrimination.
Discrimination.
So Drik Drishya Viveka is the method of discriminating between the Drik and the Drishya, between the seer and the seen. So it's a very beautiful text. God willing, we'll do it someday. But in short, What it does, it tells you that whatever you are seeing, that you are not. Okay. Whatever you are seeing, that you are not. Why so?
Because if you
Because
can
you are
see it, then it cannot
are
be
not
you.
it.
If you can
Anatma.
observe it, then it's different from you.
If it is, you can see it, it is different from you. Similarly, whatever I am experiencing, I am not. Okay, very important in the context of 2.11, 11th verse. Why? If you are experiencing sorrow, remember that it's an object, it's some event which you are experiencing. You are not that sorrow. And therefore, you should never say, I am sorrowful. What should you say?
this event is making me sorrowful.
I'm
I'm
experiencing sorrow.
experiencing sorrow.
You should say, my mind
Mind
is
is
experiencing sorrow. Why? Because I am not my mind either. Why do you say you are not your mind? Whatever
Because
is yours can never be you. Very important. Whatever is yours. So it मेरा जो है वो मैं नहीं हूँ. Very, very important statement from Shastra.
Acharya. So I have this question about, we say, yes, I'm hungry, I'm angry,
Yes.
I'm anxious. So we say I, right? It is not my body. When a body is hurt, we say that my body is aching, my legs are aching. But when it comes to emotions, we say I am feeling it.
So that is
am
because all people normally use that. But see, I'm not suggesting that when you are hungry, you should go and tell the cook that, my physical body is hungry. Okay. This is the whole purpose here is not to make one look weird. For example, let us say you are hungry. In terms of the koshas, 5 koshas, where does the hunger reside?
Annamaya.
Annamaya kosha.
Where?
Annamaya.
Pranamaya
Pranamaya
kosha.
kosha.
Pranamaya kosha.
Pranamaya
Okay.
kosha.
Do not say Annamaya kosha. It is Pranamaya kosha only. So you can't go and tell your wife that, my Pranamaya kosha wants food. She'll hit you on the head with a pan. Okay, so what you have to say is, I'm hungry. So there is a difference between the usage for transactions and the usage for understanding. So this, what we're talking about is usage for understanding. And therefore, when you are sorrowful, what will you say?
My mind.
You can say my
sad.
mind
My
is
mind.
experiencing sorrow, or you can say Manomaya Kosha is experiencing sorrow. Remember that it is my mind, it is my kosha.
I am witnessing sorrow.
That is also you can say. But
Sir, even a jnani, when a jnani is hungry or thirsty, he would say, I am thirsty, I am hungry.
yes, he will. Because it's useful for transactions.
Yes.
So remember, there are 2 usages of the word I. One is in the absolute sense, and one is in the figurative sense. So the figurative sense is called gauna in Sanskrit. Gauna usage. Gauna is figurative. So when you say, this is all for jnanis only, okay, all for Vedantics only. Please don't go and try this out in your house, okay? They'll all come to beat me afterwards. So what you have to say is that whenever you use the word I in transactional use, you are referring to the appropriate part of the body. When you say I am seeing, what is seeing? The eyes, my eyes are seeing. I am hearing, my ears are hearing. So similarly, that understanding you must always have. Why is it important? Because when you say my eyes are seeing, the eyes are yours. And therefore, you have to go by the rule that whatever is yours can never be you. When you are experiencing sorrow, my mind is experiencing sorrow. And therefore, whatever is mine can never be me. Therefore, I am not the mind. See, eyes are a good example for this, The eyes can see everything in the world, right? But there is only one thing which the eyes cannot see. What is that?
Eyes.
Themselves.
Eyes.
Eyes
Them.
cannot
Can't see itself.
Now, somebody might stand up and say, no, I can see my eyes in the mirror. What will you tell that person?
You're seeing the
You are seeing the
reflection, not
reflection.
the
You are
eyes.
seeing the reflection of the eyes. Eyes can never be seen. So, and extend all this. The experiencer can never experience himself. So this is the object is all that can be experienced. Subject can never be experienced. Therefore, the subject is always different from the object, is the main learning from this text. If you use this method, then for you, the world is what? The world is an object which comes and goes. It's an object of experience, arriving and departing. What about your body? The body is something which comes and goes. Now, if you think that statement is very mysterious, it's not. When do you experience the body? Only in Jagrad Avastha. In Swapna Avastha, the physical body, Sthula Shariram, is not experienced by you. Only in Jagrad Avastha it is experienced. Therefore, in Jagrad Avastha, Sthula Shariram is not experienced. In Swapna Avastha, Jagrad Avastha, Sthula Shariram is experienced. In Swapna Avastha, Sthula Shariram is not experienced, but Sukshma Shariram is experienced because you are dreaming. But in Sushupti Avastha, you don't experience either the Sthula Shariram or the Sukshma Shariram. Therefore, they all come and go, right? When you go to sleep, the body goes away. When you wake up, the body comes. Therefore, these are all things which are coming and going. They are all that which you are experiencing. And therefore, you are not the body. This is the learning from Drik Drishaviveka. Because I am experiencing the body, I am not the body. It's like undressing the shirt and putting it on a hanger, right? You don't say, I am the shirt. Then why do you say, I am the body? So that is as far as Sthula Shariram is concerned. What about the mind? I experience the mind during Jagrada Avastha. I experience the mind during Swapna Avastha because I get dreams. But in Sushupti Avastha, I don't experience the mind at all. What is the proof?
We don't have
Because I
any
don't-
memories of
No, we don't
that.
remember.
When you are experiencing something, you should be able to say, I am experiencing. Right? In the Jagrada Avastha, you can say, I am experiencing the Jagrada world. In Sushupti Avastha, in Swapna Avastha, you, the waker, cannot say anything. But you, what is the
Dreamer.
name? What is the name of the dreamer in Tattva-bodha?
Tejas.
Taijasa. You, Taijasa, can say that I'm experiencing the dream world. But in Sushupti Avastha, the Pragnya, does the Pragnya ever say anything?
No.
The Pragnya cannot say, Pragnya cannot think, Pragnya cannot do. And therefore, since the mind is resolved there, had you had a mind, you would be able to think and do something, or worry at least, or hate, or kama, krodha. But during Sushupti Avastha, the mind has been resolved. The mind has gone away. And therefore, during Sushupti, the mind goes away. When Jagrada Avastha, mind comes back, mind also goes and comes, which means I'm experiencing the mind also. And therefore, the mind and its properties, they come and go. Therefore, I am not the mind. The external world and its people, they come and go. I experience them all. Therefore, I am not the body also. These are two ways, two teachings from Drik Drishvivaka, where you say that I am not the body, I am not Vishwa, I am not Tejasa, I am not Prajna also. What are the arguments? Vishwa you are not, because the external world you experience. Tajasa you are not, because the dream world you experience. Prajna you are not, because there is a lack of experience at that point of time. Therefore, the mind is coming and going. That prajna you are experiencing, because you can get up and you can say, I had no experience at all. Therefore, you've experienced that lack of experience, you've experienced that lack of any experience, that zero experience which you had, you experienced. Therefore, you are not prajna also. Therefore, what are you? You are the experiencer. The experiencer is the consciousness principle. It is the Atma which Krishna is talking about. And in these verses from 12 onwards, Krishna talks about the important features of this Atma. Right? Before we actually start on the verses, I would like to give you a very brief summary of these important features. Once the summary is over, then we'll be able to understand. So this is typically the way Shastra functions. First, there is a summary, then there is an expansion, then there is a summary again. Okay, it's a very nice way of doing, because I can tell you that I did my first public speaking when I was in class 6 or something, okay, 6 or 5 or something. I had this teacher, and she said, Ravi, there is a method for teaching, for this speaking. So I said, what is that, teacher? So she said, first, you tell them what you are going to tell them. Second, you tell them. And third, you tell them what you told them. That's exactly what Shastra is for. Opening summary, expansion, and closing summary. Come to think of it, it is not just Shastram, right? Even the news gives you that. Headlines, expansion, closing headlines. Okay. So, what is the first one? We may not be able to complete today, okay? Because obviously, we won't be able to complete, not maybe.
So, may I ask something?
Yes, please.
This appears very idiotic, but the thing is, you said not the mind, we are not this. So in Sushupta Avastha, what happens to the Atma? Atma is not able to experience anything because what happens to that?
So witness.
What
Atma
does
requires
Tattva
some
say?
brain or something to experience itself. It needs a Sukshma Sharir or Sthul Sharir to experience.
You have to go back to the Tattva definitions. Who is the experiencer, OC or RC?
Experiencer is the Atma.
RC.
Is always
Oh.
the RC. And that is why in Sushupti Avastha there is no RC. Why? The RC is not present in Sushupti Avastha. Why not?
Medium is, there's no medium. Medium
Because
is
there's no
not
RM.
There is no RM. Which is the RM?
Mind.
Mind. Mind is not there. Why? Mind has been resolved. How do you know? Because had the mind been there, you would have been able to say, I am in Prajna Avastha. I am in Sushupti Avastha. I am Prajna, you would have been able to say. But you are not able to say. You don't know exactly what happens to Sushupti Avastha. The only recollection you have is after you wake up when you can say, I had a dreamless sleep.
So this is for the person. So what I'm asking is there any other explanation as to what happens in Sushupta Avastha to the Atma? It is there, but it does not experience anything.
Why are you saying what happens to Atma? Where is Atma?
It's pervading consciousness, no? So
No,
consciousness
it's
will be able
Where
to
exactly is Atma?
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So what can happen to it? When the building falls, what happens to the space?
nothing.
The space is still there
It
as
is
it
still
is.
So
Yes.
that is the example. When the bottle breaks, you say that the bottle space has gone. Right? The space in the bottle has gone, you say, when the bottle breaks. That is a usage. But what actually happens when the bottle breaks?
The outer space becomes one with the inner space of the bottle. Is that it?
The physical
also-
limitation of the bottle is
Yeah,
over.
exactly. The limitation, the seeming boundary is broken. The space has not gone anywhere. The space was always there. The bottle appeared in the space. And to differentiate the external space and the bottle space, we say there is space in the bottle. But really speaking, it is only one space. That bottle is not capable of dividing that space.
So it merges into the full consciousness.
The moment you say merger, you are thinking of two different things.
Oh.
Remember, these are all words which are used. Merger is used to say that Jivatma merges with Paramatma. But I'm trying to give you the basic. The merger is a figurative use. Nothing merges. For merger to take place, there should be a bottle space and there should be external space. But there is no bottle space. The bottle appeared in the space is the right way. The bottle disappeared from the space. Nothing happened to the space at all. Space remained as it is.
Sir, yeah, sir, you are saying it's all pervading consciousness, which is common to everything, which is actually one.
Yes.
So how is this Atma different from the other Atma, which is pervading the other body? And how do they, then their karma, I mean, if everything is 100% connected, then how is this?
Why does your face in a big mirror look nice and clean, and a small mirror looks small, let us say a small dirty mirror? Why does it look dirty over there? It is the same face.
Reflection in a particular thing.
It is the medium which is responsible
Which
for
is
that.
reflecting.
So the property of the medium is showing in the reflecting medium. And because you don't understand that, you take the property as being yours. The reflection seems to have the property of the reflecting medium. When you see the sun in, say, different types of liquids, you have, thick liquid, you have thin liquid, you have a big plate with clear liquid onto it, you have a big plate with muddy liquid onto it, you see different types of reflections of the sun. Those changes belong where?
Reflected.
To the medium. To the medium.
In the medium.
And
To the
you
medium.
put that, wrongly attribute that to the reflection. You say the reflection is dirty. It is not. The reflection looks dirty, but that is because it is a reflection. And reflection means what? It is reflecting the property of the reflecting medium.
Sir,
Okay, so
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, like the example of the car that you gave, saying that we should consider our body as an instrument, as a tool, and we can be fond of our car, we can take care of our car, but we have to understand that I am not the car. So, when suppose we take the example of the car. So, if I'm fond of the car, I'm using it. I understand it's a tool and instrument, but if the car gets damaged or if the car gets a scratch,
Yeah.
and when I'm saying I'm fond of the car, I will get hurt. Like I'll feel sorrow and I'll get hurt. So according to Shastras, but we need to have a balanced mind, right? I mean, I understand I'm not the car, but because I'm fond of the car and I've been taking care
There's
of
a
it.
difference in looking after the car and being attached to the car. If you are not attached to the car, you will simply take it to the garage. If you're attached to the car, you'll spend 2 hours crying about it. Which is better?
Taking to the garage.
there was another thing.
There's a huge problem in Shastram is distinguishing between love and attachment.
Mhm.
It's okay to love the car. It's not okay to be attached to it.
Mhm.
That becomes much more difficult if I tell you it is okay to be attached to your daughter, I mean, to be love your daughter, but not to be attached to her.
Mhm.
That will generate an emotional response. See, one of the problems that a teacher faces is how to balance this, because many of the things that we say during class is going to hit you right where it hurts.
Mhm.
Like this statement I'm saying, right? I'm
Mhm.
saying,
Mhm.
don't be attached to your daughter, love her.
Mhm.
And the question which is in your mind is, how is that possible? How can I not be attached to my daughter?
Mhm.
Because that attachment is going to create problems. That love is not going to create problems. We discussed it in the first
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah.
Right? Attachment is when you expect something from the object of attachment. Love is because out of the fullness of your heart, you are loving. What you get from that person doesn't influence your love. So loving the car means I take good care of it because it's my instrument for roaming around.
Mhm.
But if it
Sir,
gets, yeah, please.
sorry. This statement, experiencer can never experience himself. This is, I'm just trying to understand it in terms of RC and OC. So the experiencer is the art. This is because the reflecting medium, the body is no longer there. And
No,
OC
you
anyway can.
look at the example of the eyes first. From there, you
Okay.
can extend. Understand the example of the eye. Why the eye can never see itself?
Sir,
Why,
if my
why
eyes
can
are
the eye
Because
never see itself?
because it is
Because
the
it's too
sphere
close.
itself.
No, when can the eye see itself?
not.
When it
Only
is
reflection.
When there is a reflecting medium. When there is a mirror, it can see
So,
itself. Therefore,
so
anything that you experience, you are experiencing only because there is a reflecting medium. And therefore, you are not that thing.
So when the eyes are closed and you experience certain objects in your mind, so that time your mind is a reflecting medium.
Your mind is a
Your memory
reflecting
of that
medium.
object.
Yes.
And so when the Sushupti Avastha can be explained in a non-sleeping state also.
No.
So can I say reflecting mind is our memory?
No, don't complicate things by saying what you want to say. We have to say, as far as possible, try to understand as what Shastram says. So memory is part of the Antakaranam. Your Antakaranam plays different roles. One is Chitta. All are stored there.
Oh,
That thought
So
in
what
your
about our
Antakaranam.
perceptions?
Beg your pardon?
What about our perception?
All these are thoughts only. Don't try to give different names to it. Anything that you think, perception, object, anything that you think is a vritti. It's a thought. Thought is a function of the mind. Thought by itself is inert. It is jadam. The reason why you recognize a thought is because that mind is pervaded by consciousness.
so ultimately the experiencer is RC?
The experiencer is the OC. I mean,
Okay.
in terms of this, when I'm actually experiencing something, I'm the RC. I'm experiencing why? Because there is a RM. The OC is when the RM is not there.
Okay.
When the RM is not there, the RC is also not there. What remains is called the OC.
Correct.
And therefore, if you are seeing something, if you are experiencing something, you are the RC.
So the karma belongs to the RM, not the
Thank you.
RC.
Karma belongs to the RC. RM is Jada. Remember, RC is a
Saying
live
that
entity.
the RC is becoming OC the moment the Sthula Sharira is gone. So
That's not really true. Because it is not that consciousness is reflected only in the physical body.
Sharira also.
If the physical body could reflect consciousness, it would never die. How does the physical body reflect consciousness? How does it become alive? Because Sukshma Shariram is there. It is only the Sukshma Shariram which can lend that consciousness to physical body. Physical body by design cannot reflect directly from Atma. It has to have Sukshma Shariram, which is why when Sukshma Shariram goes away, the physical body is said to die.
Like stones.
Yeah, like stones also have Sat, Chit and Ananda, right? But
they
stones
don't have
Sukshma
Sukshma
Shariram.
Shariram.
So you don't see the stone talking back to you. So don't, it's early days, okay? Don't, get disheartened. We will be discussing this again and again and again. That's why I said Tattvabodha is extremely important. So keep revising Tattvabodha. By the time you finish the second chapter, hopefully you will have a very good understanding of the basics of Vedanta.
So just one thing more.
Yes, madam.
As yet, so it may be the thing is that I always understood it like this, that this is Atma, which is a slightly different entity, though it's a part of the whole, but it is because it will attain moksha by combining with the.
That's what I'm saying. Don't disregard all these, what they call preconceptions, and going only by Shastra. And one more thing I would like you all to do is stop reading external, I've noticed a lot of remarks about this one said this, and ye Swamiji ne wo bola, and isne ye bola, and this book said that. For at least 2 years from today, if you want to read any book, ask me, I'll tell you. Otherwise, go strictly by what we are doing in the class. Because any external, idea can influence your mind to some extent. So it will block your understanding. And therefore, the first thing to do is to empty the glass. Then only we can fill it.
So, sir, which book should we?
Abhi tum kuch mat padho.
Okay.
Right now we are early days. Once we are through the second chapter, then we can recommend some books. Until then, you just avoid. Until then, I would suggest that you, before you come to class, you sort of do a cleaning up of all the ideas which you already have. Throw them out. But fresh ideas come in, then you will see the difference in what you have been told so far or have read so far and what we are saying. But because what we are saying will be backed by logic and by Shastra.
Thank you.
In any reading that you do, please ensure that you don't take any statement at face value unless it can be backed by logic and by Shastra. Okay, with this, we'll stop for today. Thank you so much. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam
Purnamudachyate Purnamadaya Purnamedachyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah